We are currently one day from the very first college football playoff matchup of 2025. We've got number 9 Alabama versus number 8 Oklahoma. Alabama's coming off a loss in the SEC championship game against number 3 Georgia, where they got absolutely stomped. Alabama was held scoreless until the fourth quarter, and they didn't rush for a single positive yard, totaling -3 for the entire game on 16 attempts. And their star quarterback, Ty Simpson, he threw for below 50% completion percentage. He went 19 of 39 for 5.4 yards per pass. On the other side of the ball, we've got Oklahoma, who's coming off a 4-game winning streak, although it hasn't been extremely impressive offensively. To be fair, Oklahoma did play at number 14 Tennessee, at number 4 Alabama, and then played versus number 22 Missouri as well. Now, if you were listening, or watching the video, you might realize that Oklahoma has actually played Alabama already this year. In fact, they played just over a month ago. And Oklahoma came out on top, 23-21, behind a 24-yard field goal from Tate Sandell with 13 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Alabama dominated time of possession, but they turned the ball over 3 times. And Oklahoma didn't turn the ball over at all, and honestly, it's really hard to win games if you're -3 in the turnover department. And with that said though, this game is completely different. The complexion of each of these teams is completely different. John Mateer has recently thrown for 300 yards, which he hadn't done with the exception of the very first game of the year versus Illinois State, where he threw for 392 yards. And it's a tale of two quarterbacks, because Ty Simpson barely cracked 200 yards in the SEC championship game against Georgia, threw for 122 in the Iron Bowl, threw for 147 against Eastern Illinois, although there was no need for him to do much more than that in that game. Which brings us to his game against Oklahoma. He threw for over 300 yards in 3 separate games this year. And Oklahoma has by far the best pass defense that he has faced in one of those games. They are ranked 27th in yards per pass versus Vanderbilt at 61st and Wisconsin at 95th. This should give Bama voters confidence that Ty Simpson could put up another performance like he did against Oklahoma over a month ago. My concern is, can they run the ball? Oklahoma's defense is absolutely smothering. Alabama figured that out firsthand last time they played them, and the bad news is that Oklahoma's defense has seemingly only gotten better. Now, good news for Bama fans, Jam Miller is coming back off of injury. He had some sort of ankle or leg injury that he was dealing with that kept him out of the SEC championship game. But I'm not sure that this is going to be a Superman moment. In fact, Bama hasn't ran for over 100 yards since they played Vanderbilt on October 4th. That's not exactly where you want to be going into the playoffs, especially against a defense like the Sooners. Here are some of the impressive team ranks that the Oklahoma Sooners defense is boasting. They rank 7th in points per game, 10th in yards per game, 6th in points allowed per play, and 6th in yards per play, 8th in third down conversion rate, 1st in yards allowed per rush, 3rd in rush yards allowed a game, and they rank 2nd in highest sack rate per dropback. Are you starting to get a read on how I feel this game might go? Well, hold your horses, elephants, and schooners, because I'm not done yet. I'd be remiss not to mention Bama's defense. They rank 15th in points per game, 13th in yards per game, 16th in yards allowed per pass, 9th in pass yards allowed per game. Not to mention they're averaging 1.5 takeaways per game. As good as Oklahoma's defense is, I think people are going to overlook Alabama's defense. It's got some major playmakers on that side of the ball. Some standouts include LT Overton on the defensive line with 4 sacks and a pass deflection on the year. They've got Yanze Pierre at the linebacker position. He's got 6 sacks, 1 pass deflection, and 3 forced fumbles. And then you've got Bray Hubbard in the secondary. He's got 1 sack of his own, 8 pass deflections, 4 interceptions, and 3 forced fumbles. Definitely some players to keep your eye on. The same is true for Oklahoma's defense. They've got defensive lineman R. Mason Thomas with 6.5 sacks, a pass deflection, and 2 forced fumbles, 1 resulting in a touchdown. Then they've got Taylor Ween on the defensive line with 6 sacks, 1 pass deflection, 1 interception, and a forced fumble himself. And then you go to the secondary, they've got Peyton Bowen. He's got 7 pass deflections and 2 interceptions. This really is an NFC North fan's wet dream. We are going to see some real defensive football out there, including field goals, ugly mishaps on offense, and honestly, I can't wait. Now, just to cover all our bases, let's pretend it does turn into a shootout. Let's say that John Mateer is able to drop back, read the defense, and deliver the ball. Let's say that his hand that he recently had surgery on is no issue. And we saw him throw for 300 yards in his last game. We know he's capable. And let's say that Bama isn't able to get home with just their defensive line. LT Overton is not able to make an impact. Well, then they'd have to bring more backers, which will allow John Mateer more space in the back end to find Satinia. Or, as devil's advocate, we know that Oklahoma turns the ball over on an average of 1.2 times a game. We know that Bama's defense forces 1.5 takeaways a game. Maybe that has an impact. We know Bray Hubbard is sneaking around back there just waiting for an opportunity. And that's where the coaches come in. Brent Venables is in his 4th year at Oklahoma. He is 32-19 and he's won 62.7% of his games. This will be the first playoff game that he's been a part of as a head coach, although he has extensive experience preparing a team for the playoff when he coached as the DC at Clemson. On the other side, we have Kalen DeBoer. He's in his 6th total year as an FBS head coach. He's spent 2 at Fresno State, 2 at Washington, and he's in his 2nd year at Alabama. His record as a head coach is 56-16. He's won 77.8% of his games, and he was in the playoff at Washington in 2023 before he decided to leave the Huskies to become the head coach at Alabama. If you ask me, I don't think there's 2 more distinct head coaches in college football. Brent Venables, longtime DC at Oklahoma, Clemson, and now the head coach at Oklahoma, versus Kalen DeBoer, longtime head coach who's grinded his way up through the ranks, who is known as an offensive mind. I could probably fill up a 10-minute video just breaking down my thoughts on these 2 different guys, but we'll save it for later. Getting back to what we'll see on the field, a player that sticks out in my mind is the Sooners freshman running back, Torrey Blaylock. He showed his skills off early in the season against Temple, ran all over South Carolina, but has fumbled the ball twice. Against Alabama's defense, who loves to force a fumble, this is something to keep an eye on. In fact, now that I'm looking, I'm seeing that Oklahoma has fumbled the ball 14 times this year. That's more than 1 a game. And while they've only lost 5 of them, they're already losing the turnover battle by 2. That's not a good sign going into a game against a team who has 10 players who have forced a fumble. If you're looking for clean, fun, high-scoring football, don't tune into this one. This is going to be the fuggliest game of the year. With that being said, I'm about ready to make my final pick, but there's one more thing we have to talk about before we get there. Special teams. If you watch college football, you know who Alabama's kicker is. Connor Talty. He's the kicker who missed badly in the SEC championship game and immediately went to blaming his long snapper. And there's a reason he was frustrated. Talty is 13 of 20 on field goals this year. He's missed 2 kicks under 30 yards. He's missed 3 kicks under 40 yards. He's missed 6 kicks under 50 yards, and he hasn't made 1 over 50. Knowing that I can't kick a field goal, I don't feel confident to talk crap about Connor Talty. One thing I will say though, you gotta be better than that. To his credit though, he is 44 of 44 on extra points this year. Not a lot of kickers can say that. For Oklahoma, their kicker, Tate Sandell, is 23 of 24 on field goals this year, and his only miss came between 40 and 50 yards. He's also 32 of 32 on extra points. Clearly, I think Oklahoma and Tate Sandell have the edge here over Talty and Alabama, so I'll give them the nod in the field goal department. Moving on to punters, which I normally wouldn't try to break down, but given how both teams have really dominant defenses and honestly struggling offenses, I think it'll be extremely relevant in this game which team has better field position. Grayson Miller, the punter for the Oklahoma Sooners, has 54 punts this year, averaging 46.2 yards per punt. The net average punt yards is 40.3, and the average punt return yards that they allow is 12.3 per return. For the Crimson Tide, Blake Dowd takes over the punting duties. He's only punted 41 times this year for an average of 42.9. The net average punt yards for Bama is 38.9, and the average punt return yards that they allow is 4.3 yards, which tells me that they're putting a lot of hang time on the ball. If that continues, I doubt we'll see very many explosive punt returns from the Sooners. On the flip side of that, I think we might see some of that out of the Crimson Tide. As I said, Oklahoma allows about 12 yards per punt return, which tells me that they either have issues in covering the punt or their punter likes to outkick his coverage. I've still got to give special teams to Oklahoma. Talty is just too unreliable, and I'm going to take Oklahoma overall. I think their defense is going to smother Alabama. I don't think they'll be able to rely on the run, and I think Ty Simpson's going to have a long day in the pocket. Like I said before, this will be a low-scoring, ugly defensive game. I'm expecting about 17-10, and that'll be the Sooners moving on to face number 1 seed Indiana. I hope you guys enjoy the game. Thanks for watching, and go Tigers.